Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid is back for Game Week 36. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and with just a few game weeks to go, it's time to make some big transfer decisions ahead of the latest deadline. Before we get started, if you haven't checked out this week's Stick to FPL podcast episode, make sure you do, because we do have a special guest host, FPL Fran, joining us for this week's episode. He finished an incredible 437th in the world last season, and his data-driven approach to FPL is super useful for getting his opinion for these final few game weeks of the season. So make sure you don't miss that one. You can use the link at the top of the description or just search Stick to FPL on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're new to Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, this video is split into two parts. The first of which we will be having a look at those players you may already have in your team and which players you should keep and which players you should sell. After that, we'll be checking out the new signings for your teams, which players you should buy and which players you should potentially avoid. Players will be tier listed with the best players at the top and the worst players at the bottom. And as always, we're going to start off with the forwards for Game Week 36 and which ones perhaps we should be looking to buy. And it should be noted, guys, that we have now got the confirmation that there are going to be no more double or blank game weeks for the rest of the season. Yes, that final opportunity was going to be Aston Villa versus Spurs. However, that fixture has been rescheduled, but it has stayed within Game Week 37. That's now going to be played on the Friday of Game Week 37 instead of the Sunday. So just be aware of that, guys. We are not expecting any other double or blank game weeks between now and the end of the season. So we have a pretty clear idea on fixtures now, which is good. At least we have the confirmed information. And we can see straight away in the keep category among our forwards, Marmoush is going to be top here alongside Chris Wood. And I think it makes a lot of sense to be keeping these kind of guys ahead of a fabulous fixture against one of those newly promoted and newly relegated teams in Game Week 36. Marmoush playing Southampton, where he should still be that #1 striker in this team. And Chris Wood, of course, we're expecting him to play regularly as Nottingham Forest look to try and secure a Champions League place for the new season. Whether they will be able to do that or not is a different question. But the next two game weeks are really nice fixtures for the likes of Nottingham Forest. And our third keep player here is actually going to be Cunha. If you do have him in your team somehow, I would not let that blank against Man City put you off. That is obviously a difficult fixture. But a home game against Brighton, followed by actually what could be a pretty nice fixture against Crystal Palace away, which will be just a few days after Crystal Palace have played in the FA Cup final. That could be a really nice opportunity, and Brentford at home to finish the season off. So actually, for a 3-game week basis, Cunha looks pretty good, but really with Marmoush and Wood, it's their next 2 game weeks that you'll really be looking at to try and secure some decent points there, after which you could think about switching these guys out for Game Week 38. In the monitor category, we've got Watkins at the top of this list, a disappointing Game Week 35, but with no Rashford, we're hoping that Watkins can continue to get some pretty decent minutes between now and the end of the season. Of course, Aston Villa, another team that will be going full strength in these final 3 games for that Champions League qualification hopes. Bournemouth away is the next fixture, followed by a really nice fixture against Spurs at home, who will be playing their Europa League final actually in the midweek of Game Week 37. So we're expecting actually Spurs to be heavily rotated in Game Week 37 once again. So that could be pretty nice if you are a Watkins owner. And of course, Manchester United to finish the season off. If they reach the final of the Europa League as well as Spurs, well, that's going to be another team that could be rotated in Game Week 38, with neither of these teams with anything to play for left in the Premier League and all focus being on Europe. After that, I've got Evan Nilsson here at home against Aston Villa. I don't think this is an amazing fixture, and certainly Man City is a really difficult fixture right now, but Leicester at home in Game Week 38. I think you can definitely play Evan Nilsson in the next 2 game weeks, but really, if you can potentially bench him, at least you'll be able to play him for that fabulous fixture in the final day of the season. But he's certainly less so a keep than some of the other players on this list who do have a better fixture more immediately. Mateta is another interesting one here. I do like this Spurs away fixture in Game Week 37, but as we mentioned with Palace, there could be some rotation in Game Week 37. So if you're looking to replace a forward in the long term, then maybe Mateta could be replaced. But I would be very tempted to keep him up against Spurs in Game Week 36. That is obviously a very nice fixture for any attacking player, and Mateta is certainly that guy. Isak is our final player in the monitor section, and genuinely, I think he could be a sell. And I think more people would be willing to sell him if it were not for that penalty that he scored in the last minute of game week 35, because really he didn't have a sniff at goal during that game. His form has dropped off a little bit, and the next three fixtures against Chelsea, Arsenal and Everton, these are three of the best defenses in the Premier League right now, so it's a difficult run of fixtures for Isak, and therefore I would be very tempted to sell him again if you're looking for someone to sell right now, right this very moment, because immediately Isak does have that worse fixture than someone like Mateta or Marmoush, who you may already have in your team. So I'd be more tempted to sell Isak, but his nailed on minutes and pretty decent underlying numbers probably mean he is not a must sell, and really only a player you'd be looking to sell if you were desperate for a new signing in the forward position, which of course we will be covering later on in the video. For ourselves, I've put Strand Larsen in here given his potential injury issues ahead of the next few game weeks. Still not confirmed fit, so might be a good time to sell him. Raul Jimenez has got pretty weak attacking numbers generally. His numbers have been poor for a while, and against Everton next, not really feeling this one. And Beto against Fulham away, you could be tempted to keep him for that Southampton at home fixture, but Fulham away, Newcastle away in the next three. I'm sure there are better options right now, and I think it is much easier to replace someone like Beto if you're looking for a new forward than perhaps it is, you know, players like Mateta or Isak, for example, and that's the reason why Beto is going to go in the sell category. On to the midfielders to keep, and this one I struggled with a little bit because obviously there are some pretty expensive midfielders that are going to be on this list today, and honestly, if you're looking at someone like De Bruyne or Mbeumo and you need to fund that move, you may actually have to sell someone who is quite expensive, but we'll put Mo Salah at the top of the keep category, and this is for those of you guys who are pretty happy with your season, you're winning your mini leagues, you're doing very well, you don't want to take too many risks at this late stage of the season. It's probably a good idea to keep Mo Salah in your team right now because he is going to be so heavily owned and people will still captain him even in these slightly more difficult fixtures against the likes of Arsenal and Brighton. Salah, of course, has not been in great form, but it does seem like his teammates are forcing the ball to him so he can continue to push those records further that he has been setting this season. And Arsenal, after their Champions League game, at time of recording, I don't know the result of that game, but you would imagine that there could be some rested players in game week 36. So a home fixture for Salah against a maybe slightly rested, rotated Arsenal team actually might not be so bad. Now, I don't know if Salah is captain material necessarily for game week 36, but unless you want to play a really risky game of FPL for the final three games of the season, he's probably going to be a keep for you. I don't think he is going to be rotated, by the way, for the final three games of the season. I think his minutes are pretty secure, actually, because, again, he's going to have personal goals that he has set for himself. We've got Rodgers in the keep section as well. Not really a player there's any strong need to sell. And we mentioned with Aston Villa, the last two game weeks of the season look pretty nice. So you could bench him potentially for game week 36 and then look to play him for game week 37 and 38. But at the same time, I think he's fine to play against Bournemouth as well. We've seen that he has been picking up a decent amount of FPL returns recently, even if not in game week 35. And Bruno Fernandes is going to be our final keep here. Maybe slightly risky because we're not 100% convinced on his minutes right now as Manchester United look to really prioritise Europa League. However, that said, I do think there is a chance that he starts. And if he does start at home against West Ham, then that's going to be a pretty nice fixture for him. He's had 2 rests in the Premier League recently. Is that going to be enough now? And he just maybe needs to just build momentum through to the end of the season. I think game week 37 is more of a risky fixture for Bruno's minutes when compared to game week 36. And I'd be surprised if he was rested in both of these games. I would be surprised about that because he does need to play some games in the build up to a Europa League final if, of course, Manchester United were to reach that final. It's only Tuesday right now when recording, so I don't know the facts, but I think it looks likely that Man United could get the job done there. So, monitors next, and Saka is a really curious one. I don't think many people were expecting him to play, let alone play as many minutes as he did in game week 35 ahead of the Champions League game. However, It's Saka, right? Saka is a player who historically just plays every game, weekend, midweek, every single game. And it could be that now he's at a stage in his fitness where he is able to just do that. And it might be important that he plays a lot of fixtures to maintain and keep that fitness going. Now, of course, if Arsenal are knocked out this evening, then Saka, there's really no reason to not play him in the Premier League, because second place in the Premier League is not guaranteed. Champions League isn't even guaranteed for Arsenal right now. And with Liverpool away and Newcastle at home, the next two fixtures, these are not exactly the easiest fixtures in the world if you're looking to try and get some wins under your belt. And Arsenal will need their best players in these fixtures. So actually, I think the Saka minutes potential is improving as we get later and later in the season. And of course, we have Southampton away, the final game of the season. If you've kept Saka up until this point, it may just be worth keeping him all the way till 38 now, because I imagine a lot of people will actually be looking to buy Saka in game week 38, and you may find yourself ahead of the game here. But if you did want to bench him, if you were a little bit worried, I think that would be okay too. And if you are looking for a big new signing in midfield, again, maybe Saka will just have to be the player who is sacrificed in order to do that. And that's why he's in the monitor section. Ismaila Sarr, similar situation as Mateta, really. Spurs looks good. High line, Sarr on the counter-attack. This is pretty nice stuff. So certainly this could really work out in game week 36, but generally he's not been in the greatest form, and we are expecting some rotation in game week 37 for Palace, and that final game week is going to be against Liverpool away. So all in all, Sarr is definitely not a player you must keep, but at 5.7 million, I don't think he's a must sell either. Cole Palmer, if you do have him in your team, I think there is definitely some argument to keep him. His form does seem to be improving. Had a really good game in game week 35 against Liverpool, and he did, of course, score that penalty. But do not make the mistake of thinking that a penalty scored is an indication that he is going to suddenly be amazing in open play every single game. This is one penalty. That's his only goal since January. That is not a great return rate there. But Newcastle away is not a particularly great fixture. Man United at home after that is slightly better. So lots to play for still for Chelsea. I don't think Palmer is a must-sell player necessarily anymore. And if you did hold on to him, you could continue to do so. But again, a player I would be willing to replace for the right player. And Savinho is going to be the final player on monitor. And this really is just down to trying to get early team news. Now, if we can get early team news for Man City against Southampton, because of course Man City are the first fixture of game week 36 alongside a few other fixtures, to be fair. But there's a good chance we get early team news on Savinho. And Savinho is the right winger for Man City. He plays on that right-hand side. I think there's a good chance he does actually start this game week, having got a rest in game week 35, played the FA Cup fixture before that, so he's still very much in the Man City plans. But if he does play, and he's playing in a right-sided attacking position, that is against Southampton. And what do we see every single game week? We see attackers on the right-hand side always score against Southampton. We've seen last week Ayew. We saw Harry Wilson for Fulham, Jarrod Bowen for West Ham. The list goes on and on. Every game week, a right winger will score against Southampton. And if it's Savinho who is playing to exploit that clear tactical weakness at Southampton, then I think that's a pretty good thing, right? So if he starts, I genuinely think Savinho is a really nice pick for this week, but it is a big if. We don't know just yet. Hence him being in the monitor section. And it could be that selling Savinho might be your only route to get someone like De Bruyne in your team if that's something you want to do. Onto ourselves, Luis Diaz, I think with the rotation risk and the imperfect fixtures is probably a decent time to sell right now. Jacob Murphy as well, difficult fixtures for him. And if you can find some other midfielders you like the look of, I think I'd be okay with replacing Murphy ahead of these next three difficult fixtures for Newcastle. We have actually seen Murphy's data dropping off a little bit. Really, the majority of his XG numbers were that Leicester game several weeks ago. So he has been dropping off a little bit. And Mikel Merino, maybe some rotation risk here. Difficult fixtures in the next two. Is he a player you really want for the final three games of the season? not sure, particularly if Kai Havertz is available for Game Week 38 as well. It could be that Marino, you don't even get him at striker for Game Week 38 as well, because we do know that Havertz is looking to slowly return by the end of the season. At least that's the hope coming from Arsenal right now. For our defenders, I think I would probably keep the Liverpool guys at this stage of the season. Trent and Virgil. It's not the greatest fixture against Arsenal, but it's a pretty good time to play Arsenal, so maybe you could afford to keep these guys. And as for Robinson, even though Fulham have been defensively disappointing recently, with not even any attacking returns from Robinson, Everton at home is a nice little fixture if you're looking for clean sheets, and I'm sure there's going to be bigger priority sells in your defensive position. Saliba and really any Arsenal defenders are potential sells this game week if you did want to make a defensive move. The fixtures in the next two are not great, but I would like to hold on to maybe a little bit of Arsenal defensive coverage ahead of Game Week 38, particularly if we can find a nailed-on one like Saliba or Raya, perhaps, to take through to the end of the season. Munoz is a monitor, obviously disappointing in Game Week 35 with the yellow card and the goal conceded. However, Spurs, it's a nice fixture for an attacking player. And one thing we have to accept about Munoz is he is a fabulous attacking player. Did actually really quite well. It looked like he could have had opportunities to score and indeed assist against Forest just last night. So for that reason, I think that he is a potential keep ahead of a Spurs team that could see some rotation in Game Week 36. After that, we've got Kerkez. Really, we're holding out for Game Week 38 if you do still have Kerkez in your team, because the next two fixtures, you probably want to bench him. As for Yuri and Timber, the rotation risk in combination with the poor fixtures over the next two probably means he is edging towards a sell as well. Livramento is similar to the likes of Kerkez, Bournemouth defenders, Arsenal defenders, whereby the next two fixtures are weak, but Game Week 38 is good. But Everton is not quite as good as Southampton or Leicester. So for that reason, I don't know if it is as worth holding on to him as maybe some of the other defenders. Kukurea, not sure I would be looking to keep him either. Newcastle away next and quite expensive at 5.4 million. Cheaper Chelsea defenders, I'd be more tempted to keep and maybe just bench for Game Week 36, because Chelsea actually have been putting up some good defensive numbers recently. They've been one of the stronger defenses in the Premier League. And Pedro Porro, with his incredible rotation risk playing for the Tottenham Hotspur defense, is of course going to be a sell this week as well. And at this point in the video, I do ask you to please leave a like if you are finding this video useful, and as well any of the Buy Sell Keep Avoid series. We're almost at the end of the season now, so your support in this final push of the season is massively appreciated. Of course, do subscribe if you're new around here and you like this kind of stuff. Okay, forwards to buy, and there's three top candidates here: Wissa, Wood and Cunha, and I would probably put these three players in this order as well. All three of them are great, and if I'm totally honest, if I was forced to pick just one of these three players, I wouldn't feel too disappointed missing out on the other two, because they're all great and it's really difficult to make a decision on this one. But Wissa is putting up the best numbers. He is the player in the best form right now. 2.84 XG is really nice. Ipswich away is the next fixture. It is a pretty easy transfer to go for Wissa. Now, Chris Wood, maybe not really the guy with the underlying numbers, but that's been the case all season. He doesn't take many shots. He doesn't generate much XG, but he's playing against Leicester at home next, and he's been playing super well too. So for that reason, he is still going to be high on the priority list. Leicester and West Ham is a nice pair of fixtures in Game Week 36 and 37. Some people might even call Chris Wood a captain option in this fabulous fixture. And we've got Cunha as the final player here. Maybe slightly weaker fixtures than Wissa and Wood, but we know the magic that Cunha has. He is actually putting up some better underlying data than he was previously in the season, where he was smashing it. His shots quality is so good, he will finish chances that you might not expect other players to finish. He just has that in his locker. Assists potential as well is always there with the likes of Cunha with those set pieces. So he's just all in all a really nice player to own for the final 3 game weeks of the season. Reliable, and perhaps actually has the best Game Week 38 fixture of these 3 guys as well, if you do want to factor that in with your decision making. But I still think that if I was forced to order these 3 players, Wissa, then Wood, and then Cunha in priority order. But as I say, there's so little between these 3 players. I like them all. go with your gut on this one, I think. Marmoush is in the monitor section. I think you could definitely still potentially buy him if you don't have him already, but with Haaland looming in the Man City camp, it could be that Marmoush could start to see his minutes reduced a little bit as we go deeper into the season. I think he's good for a start in game week 36, but after that, it could become a little bit more risky for him. Watkins, someone to monitor. I'm not sure I'd be super keen to buy him when looking at some of the other options. And Evan Nilsson, despite his fabulous data, the next two fixtures maybe not quite there if we are looking for someone who is going to really hit the ground running as a new signing for your FPL team. Isak, not sure he is going to be a buy necessarily with his poor fixtures. Think I'd look elsewhere. But we have to get to the avoid section, and Erling Haaland unfortunately is going to be here. I'm sorry to rain on the parade. I know people are excited about the return of the robot, the obviously most expensive player in the game of FPL. He is back in training, but he didn't get a single minute of football in game week 35 against Wolves. And that does suggest that he's not quite ready to go. Certainly not quite ready for a start. So for that reason, I think the best case scenario you're looking from Haaland is going to be a substitute appearance. And you could make the argument maybe he could get a goal in that substitute appearance. But best case scenario, you get 20, 30 minutes from him. Worst case scenario, he doesn't play at all, of course, or he gets just a few minutes at the end of the game in preparation for the FA Cup final, which I think Haaland will probably be building his minutes towards. But it doesn't make too much sense for Haaland to start in game week 36. So we do have to put him in the avoid section, particularly as it probably will take some major surgery in your FPL team to buy a rotation risk player. Doesn't really make too much sense to me. Beto is going to be a void for similar reasons mentioned earlier in the video. And Mateta, although I like the Tottenham fixture, I think for the final 3 game weeks of the season, he's not really going to be a player that we'd like to have in this total 3 game weeks. If you have him already, fine, you could keep him for game week 36, but after that you'd probably be looking to sell anyway, so for that reason I wouldn't buy if you don't have him already. We've got a really nice trio of players at the top of the midfield section as well. I think forwards and midfielders look like really nice buys this week generally, and I know we're probably not going to be able to get them all. We're going to have to be quite selective here, but at the top of the midfield buy section we have got Bryan Mbeumo, probably the #1 captain candidate for game week 36, as he has done so well against newly promoted teams this season. Obviously played 5 times against newly promoted sides. On 4 of those occasions, he has scored 14 points or more. Absolutely incredible stuff. So he is going to be a player that is going to be really difficult to go without ahead of game week 36 and could be the priority buy of the entire game week if you didn't pick him up in a previous game week. So fair warning there, you could be in some trouble if you don't have Mbeumo in your team come deadline. But if you already have Mbeumo, there's certainly some other players to look at here. Kevin De Bruyne is another clear captain option for game week 36 ahead of Southampton. And even though he plays for this Pep Guardiola guy who likes to rotate his team, you would think that De Bruyne, for his final 4 games for Man City, nothing really to save him for after that. He's going to continue to play in these fixtures. So Southampton could be a big opportunity. It's a really nice fixture. De Bruyne has been in some fabulous form, looking back to his magnificent best. As long as he's fit, he is always a player who could do some damage. So if you're happy to take that small risk on rotation, then I think he's definitely a nice buy for the week. And maybe someone who has got a bit more minute security is Jarrod Bowen, who's been in fabulous form himself. 3 goals and 2 assists in the past 6 game weeks. That's the same as Bryan Mbeumo, by the way. And he's actually slightly outscored Mbeumo during this time as well, which is interesting. Man United and Forest are actually better fixtures than they look on paper. And Ipswich away in game week 38 provides you with a really nice player for a final stretch of the season. He is good every single game week from here till the end. Well, we've got a differential in the monitor section. Sharda, do you fancy going for him? 5.1 million man with a couple of goals in recent game weeks, 3 in the last 2. Pretty nice. And just like Mbeumo, he has that nice fixture. Now, I don't think Sharda is a adequate Mbeumo replacement. I still think, you should be making all of your best efforts to get Mbeumo and Wissa before Sharda. But if it is just impossible for you, or if you want to go crazy and go for a triple up in the Brentford attack, then I think Sharda is a pretty nice pick as well for the final 3 game weeks of the season. Nice and cheap. One small warning on Sharda, and maybe this applies for Wissa as well to a degree, is that Thiago, the striker that Brentford signed last summer, who has been injured most of the season, he is back and available now. So if there is going to be some rotation, it's probably going to be Sharda who misses out and Wissa potentially moving to the left wing position. Though I don't think it is guaranteed that Thiago plays any games. And certainly I think Sharda is good for game week 36 at the very least. And all in all, it's just about minutes. Do we think Sharda could get the early substitutions? It's definitely something that could potentially happen. But still some stuff to play for Brentford. They've still got European football to compete for. Maybe not Champions League, but it's still going to be really nice for Brentford to try and get a European place of some variety. Now, we've got some Nottingham Forest midfielders in here, and I think these guys do come with some risk. It's very difficult to predict which Forest midfielder will score and when they will score. So even though the next 2 game weeks fixtures look really nice, Gibbs White and Elanga are still pretty risky when compared to some of the other options on this list. Honestly, their data has been pretty poor. Forest's data in general has been poor, but the next 2 fixtures may be good enough to maybe turn the tables a little bit on Forest's, I guess, their luck, how well they've been doing recently, because they need to pick up some points if they want to get some Champions League football. And Morgan Rogers, not sure if he's necessarily a buy, but definitely a useful player to have. So if you do need a cheaper guy, you're looking for that nailed Aston Villa midfielder, he's probably the guy you would go for right now. And we're going to put Eze in the avoid section. Despite some great form, penalty scored in game week 35. It's the rotation in game week 37 that worries me a little bit. Eze is certainly not a sell ahead of Spurs, but after that, I just don't know if I'd want him in my team. And I think there are just better options at a similar price if you're looking for a new player for your team. Cole Palmer would not be using that penalty as a reason to buy him ahead of a Newcastle away fixture. And Bruno, even though I would probably take a risk and keep him, I don't think you would buy him with that still a little bit of rotation risk looming, particularly from game week 37 onwards. I think 37 is really risky for Bruno's minutes, maybe 38 as well, more so than 36. So if you have Bruno, maybe keep him for 36. But if you haven't got Bruno, it's probably not the time to buy him. The minutes are going to probably be a little bit dodgy between now and the end of the season. Okay, defenders now. And it's really the Man City defenders I like the look of the most. I think they have, on balance, probably the best fixtures for the final 3 game weeks of the season, if you're looking for a top defense with top fixtures as well. And also what is great about Man City is because they're kind of playing with players listed as midfielders in the left and right back position, it means that if Man City do keep a clean sheet, it's really Gvardiol, Ruben and Ederson, the only players who are likely to get those additional bonus points. And we've kind of seen that already. Those Man City defenders have kind of been bonus point cheat codes as long as they keep clean sheets. So if you've got Gvardiol already, great. I'd be fine with doubling up on Ruben Dias. I think that is a really nice place to go right now. Aït-Nouri, also a potential buy here as well. The fixtures are mediocre, but he is a player who is showing a lot of attacking potential at the moment, which is quite nice to see. Milenkovic could be a buy for the next couple of fixtures, although it should be noted that Forest's defensive data is still very, very poor at the moment, and they haven't really been able to get too many clean sheets recently. I know it's every game it looks unlikely for them to keep a clean sheet, but occasionally they do it. That's not really been happening as much recently as it was previously in the season. Collins has nice fixtures, but I'm not sure I fully trust the Brentford defence, but could be an option if you're looking to go a bit cheaper. Sessegnon is also here. Nice fixture against Everton if you want a rotation defender, but I'm not fully convinced by his minutes. They look okay, but not perfect. It'd be nice to see him in some attacking roles once again, though, in these final few fixtures. Kerkez, don't think I'd be looking to buy him ahead of the next 2 game weeks. Looks like pretty rough fixtures for him. Same with Howson, so he is going to be in the avoid section. Trent, don't think I'd buy him ahead of Arsenal. And finally, Munoz. Yeah, similar reasons for all of the other Crystal Palace players. Keep them maybe, but probably don't buy them. And finally, our goalkeepers, Pickford and Sanchez, I'd be looking to keep. We mentioned Chelsea are looking pretty good defensively right now, and Pickford, next 2 game weeks, pretty nice. Fulham actually struggling to score a little bit at the moment. Though, if you absolutely have to sell a goalkeeper, maybe I'd be tempted to sell Raya or Henderson, although honestly, 3 game weeks left in the season, it is unlikely you're going to get good value out of your transfer if spending it on a goalkeeper. But we got to do this section of the video regardless. If you're looking for a new goalkeeper, Ederson from Man City and Sells at Nottingham Forest would be perhaps where I'd be looking to go. Maybe Pickford as well. And as for the avoids, Martinez and Kepa Arrizabalaga would not be looking to pick up either of these guys ahead of the next few game weeks, which do look a little tough for them. But those are all of the players I want to talk about in today's Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid video. If we missed anyone out, let me know in the comments section. Any player, I will let you know if I think they are a buy, a sell, a keep, or an avoid. Just leave that comment down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this one, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. We'll be back tomorrow for the 100 experts video. But if you are looking for more FPL content, you can check out the Stick to FPL podcast using the link in the description to watch it on YouTube, or check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you prefer. Anyway, guys, I'll see you tomorrow for 100 experts, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.